I am Marcus Aurelius, and I will not speak to you as a comforter. I will speak as a man who ruled while the ground was unstable, while disease emptied cities, while war never stayed at the frontier, and while those closest to power were often the least trustworthy. If you are searching for reassurance that the world will soften, leave now. It will not. The problem has never been the hostility of the world. The problem is what hostility turns you into if you do not govern yourself. I was raised to power, but power did not protect me from disappointment. It sharpened it. Every weakness in human nature becomes more visible when you are responsible for others. You see laziness disguised as caution. You see ambition dressed as virtue. You see gratitude vanish the moment it is no longer profitable. If bitterness were inevitable, no one in my position could have escaped it. Yet bitterness is not fate. It is a failure of inner order. The first thing you must understand is this: life does not owe you fairness. The universe is not arranged to reward effort, intelligence, or decency. It responds to causes, not hopes. When you expect justice from events themselves, you prepare the ground for resentment. Justice is something you practice, not something you receive. Most people become bitter because they confuse expectation with entitlement. They believe that if they act correctly, the world should respond in kind. When it does not, they feel cheated. This belief is childish, but it persists into adulthood because it is comforting. It allows a person to see themselves as a victim rather than as an agent. Once adopted, it corrodes character slowly and thoroughly. I trained myself to expect difficulty not as a threat, but as a condition. Each morning, I reminded myself that I would encounter people who were dishonest, arrogant, or careless. Not because they were evil, but because they were confused about what is good. When you see this clearly, you stop taking offense personally. Offense assumes intention. Ignorance requires firmness, not outrage. This distinction matters. Anger consumes attention. Attention is finite. When it is wasted on resentment, it is unavailable for duty. I could not afford that waste. Neither can you, regardless of your position. A hostile world already taxes your energy. Do not volunteer more by indulging reaction. Discipline begins here, the refusal to let your first impression rule you. An insult arrives, a setback occurs. Your body reacts before your reason. This is natural. The error is in granting that reaction authority. Pause. Interrogate the impression. Ask whether it concerns your character or merely your comfort. Comfort is fragile and external. Character is stable and internal. Confuse the two, and you will live in constant agitation. I watched capable men destroy themselves because they mistook inconvenience for injustice. They believed that frustration was proof of mistreatment. Over time, their speech hardened, their judgment narrowed, and their capacity for cooperation vanished. They became difficult, then isolated, then irrelevant. Bitterness does not merely make you unhappy. It makes you ineffective. Duty is the corrective. Duty anchors you to something larger than your mood. It is not imposed by gods or rulers. It emerges from your position in the web of human life. You are a son or daughter, a worker, a citizen, a friend. Each role carries obligations. When you fulfill them, regardless of recognition, you align yourself with reality. When you reject them, you drift into fantasy and complaint. As emperor, I did not have the luxury of choosing only pleasant duties. I signed orders that sent men to die. I judged disputes where no outcome was clean. I managed scarcity while being accused of cruelty. If I had allowed bitterness to guide me, I would have ruled by impulse. Instead, I returned again and again to the same question. What does my role require, stripped of emotion? This question simplifies life. It removes drama. It narrows focus. It does not ask how you feel, but what must be done. People who ask only how they feel become erratic. People who ask what is required become reliable. Reliability builds inner confidence. Confidence built this way does not depend on praise. It survives hostility. Inner order depends on a strict boundary. Some things are under your control. Most are not. Your opinions, intentions, and actions belong to you. Outcomes, reputations, and the behavior of others do not. This division is simple, yet few maintain it consistently. They attempt to manage what cannot be managed and neglect what can. When you invest emotional energy in outcomes, you guarantee disappointment. Outcomes depend on chance, on others, on timing. When you invest energy in intention and conduct, you strengthen the only domain that is truly yours. This is not resignation. It is precision. A hostile world tests this precision constantly. You will be blamed for things beyond your reach. You will be denied credit for things you carried. If your peace depends on acknowledgement, you will never have it. If it depends on coherence between your actions and your principles, it becomes difficult to disturb. Bitterness often masquerades as insight. People tell themselves they have seen the truth about others. What they have often seen is only repetition of human weakness. There is nothing profound in discovering that people are selfish, fearful, or inconsistent. This has always been so. The mistake is believing that this knowledge entitles you to contempt. Contempt is a luxury you cannot afford. It narrows perception. It tempts you to treat others as obstacles rather than as fellow agents struggling with confusion. This does not mean trusting blindly. It means judging accurately. Accurate judgment is cool, not heated. It separates correction from hatred. Forgiveness is part of this accuracy, not forgiveness as sentiment or reconciliation, but forgiveness as release. When you hold anger, you bind your attention to the offender. They occupy your thoughts without paying rent. You rehearse their offense. You refine your case against them. Meanwhile, your own work stalls. Release is an act of self-command. It says, "This event will not dictate my inner state." The offender keeps their action. You keep your clarity. This is not weakness, it is sovereignty. You must also forgive yourself, not for moral failure but for human limitation. You will misjudge. You will act with incomplete information. You will fail despite effort. If each failure becomes evidence of personal inadequacy, you will shrink. Learn instead to extract instruction without self-loathing. Correction requires honesty, not cruelty. Time is short. This is not a threat. It is a measurement. Most grievances expire before they are resolved. Most conflicts outlive their importance. If you could see your life from its end, you would be embarrassed by how much energy you devoted to trivialities. Keep that perspective now, while it can still guide action. I reminded myself often that I was already dead, not in despair, but in clarity. From that vantage, fear loosens its grip. Reputation loses weight. What remains is the question of whether you acted in accordance with reason while you were here. Everything else dissolves. A hostile world pressures you to seek escape. Pleasure, distraction, intoxication, indulgence. These dull pain temporarily, but they also dull judgment. Over time, they weaken the very faculties needed to endure difficulty. You trade long-term stability for short-term relief. This is how inner disorder begins. Do not confuse rest with escape. Rest restores capacity. Escape avoids reality. One strengthens you. The other hollows you out. Choose carefully. You do not need to be admired. You need to be aligned. Alignment produces a quiet confidence that does not announce itself. Others sense it without understanding it. It comes from consistency between belief and action. Hostility tests this consistency. Each test passed strengthens it. I did not write to instruct the world. I wrote to remind myself. Power does not eliminate confusion. Intelligence does not guarantee discipline. Each day requires renewal of commitment. Each day offers the same choice: react and degrade, or respond and refine. If you wish to live without bitterness, abandon the fantasy of control over others. Abandon the demand that life justify itself to you. Accept difficulty as material, not as insult. Treat your mind as a citadel whose gates you control. Admit only what serves reason. This does not make life easy. It makes it workable. In a world that resists you, that is enough. The hostile world will continue. That is not a failure. It is the setting. Your task is not to soften it, but to remain ordered within it. Discipline preserves clarity. Duty gives direction. Inner order grants freedom. Without these, bitterness is inevitable. With them, it has nowhere to take hold.